Wine sat at her desk, quietly scribbling in her notebook, hoping to remain invisible. Her round glasses occasionally slipped down her nose as she pushed them back up with her finger. The classroom was buzzing with laughter and chatter, but her focus remained on her notes until a sudden shadow loomed over her desk. Well, well, look who we have here. She sneered, folding her arms as she eyed Wine up and down. The nerdy little chubby girl sitting all alone as usual. Those glasses, she scoffed, tilting her head mockingly. Do you even see through them, or are they just for decoration? Forget the glasses. Did she even fit in the desk properly? She whispered to Jisoo, making sure Wine could hear. Laughter erupted between them, their hushed voices filled with cruel amusement. Wine bit her lower lip. She had grown used to their taunts, but it never hurt any less. Before she could muster the courage to say anything, the door suddenly swung open. A hush fell over the room as heavy footsteps entered. Jisoo immediately straightened, flipping her hair as she turned forward the door. Jungkook, she practically squealed, rushing toward him. You are here. I was waiting for you. Jungkook barely acknowledged her presence. His sharp eyes remained unreadable as he walked past her without sparing a glance. His dark uniform contrasted against his pale skin, and his presence alone demanded attention. Jisoo pouted, trying again. You must be tired. Want me to get you something coffee, a snack? Jungkook didn't respond. Without a single glance, he took his usual seat at the front, next to an empty chair. The class watched in silence, some smirking at Jisoo's obvious rejection. She huffed, flipping her hair in frustration before storming back to her seat. Just then, the professor entered, placing his books on the desk. He scanned the classroom before adjusting his glasses. We have a new student today. Wine's throat felt dry. She hesitated before slowly raising her hand. I am Wine. She stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Mina leaned toward Jisoo with an amused smirk. Of course, she sounds shy. She probably spends all her time reading. Sujin giggled, or eating. Snickers spread throughout the classroom, but the professor remained unfazed. Why? There is an empty seat beside Jungkook. You may sit there. Wine's breath hitched beside Jungkook. Her eyes darted toward him. He had not reacted, merely raising his hand slightly so she could recognize where to sit. Her heart pounded as she hesitantly gathered her things. She had purposely chosen the last desk to avoid attention, and now she was being asked to sit next to him, the most popular boy in college. As she slowly walked to the front, she felt the weight of every stare. Seriously, she gets to sit beside Jungkook? She muttered barely, I bet he is disgusted. Why swallowed hard, gripping the strap of her bag tightly. When she finally reached the desk, she hesitated. Jungkook remained indifferent, his gaze fixed ahead completely, uninterested in her presence. Taking a deep breath, she cautiously lowered herself onto the chair. His proximity sent a wave of nervousness through her. He was too close, too intimidating, and far too handsome. Just breathe, don't embarrass yourself, she thought, forcing herself to look straight ahead. But the whispers had not stopped. She won't last a day. He probably hates this. Wine clenched her hands together, her shoulders tense. This was going to be a long day. The professor adjusted his glasses before addressing the class. All right, everyone, open your notebooks and write this down. It's important. Chairs scraped against the floor as students hurried to pull out their notebooks and pencils. The soft sound of papers flipping filled the room as everyone began scribbling down notes. Wine reached into her bag, her fingers searching for her notebook and pen. But as she rummaged through her things, panic slowly crept up her spine. Nothing to write with. Her heart pounded in her rush this morning. She had forgotten to pack them. She nervously glanced around. Everyone was busy writing, their hands moving swiftly across the paper. The humiliation burned in her chest. Would the professor scold her? Would the other students notice? Just as her fingers clenched into fists, she felt something lightly tap her elbow. She turned her head. Startled, Jungkook was holding out a pencil. His face remained expressionless, his eyes still fixed on his notebook as if this was the most casual thing in the world. Her breath hitched. She hesitated before taking it carefully with both hands. Bowing her head slightly, thank you. Jungkook didn't respond. He simply returned to writing in his own notebook as if nothing had happened. Wine bit her lip, gripping the pencil. He didn't say anything, but he had noticed. After class, most students packed their bags quickly, eager to leave for the cafeteria. Wine, however, remained at her seat, flipping through her notes, trying to memorize what she had just written. Jungkook was zipping up his bag when his eyes landed on her. Unlike the others, she wasn't rushing to leave. Instead, she was staring at her notebook, her lips moving slightly as she mumbled the words under her breath. His gaze lingered for a second before he slung his bag over his shoulder and walked out. The room was almost empty when a familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. Look at her, acting all serious now. Once stiffened, she slowly looked up, only to see Mina, Jisoo, and Sujin standing in front of her desk with amused smirks. Wow, Wine, taking a pencil from Jungkook, that's bold. Do you think that makes you special? She sneered. Wine lowered her gaze, gripping her note. Maybe she thinks he likes her now. She mocked, nudging Jisoo. Or maybe she's just desperate for any attention. Laughter erupted between them, their words cutting deep. Wine felt a lump form in her throat, her hands trembling slightly. Just then, a voice interrupted the quality. What's happening here? The laughter stopped. The girls turned around to see Jungkook standing at the doorway, a bag of snacks and a banana milk in his hand. His dark eyes scanned the scene, his jaw tightening slightly. Mina's face immediately shifted into a look of innocence. Oppa, nothing. We were just trying to be friends with Wine. She pouted. She's new after all. The laughter stopped. The girls turned around to see Jungkook's sharp gaze flickered between them, his expression unreadable. Friends! His tone was cold. You think bullying someone is how you made friends? Mina's smile wavered. We were just joking. Jungkook exhaled sharply, clearly unimpressed. He turned his gaze toward Wine, his expression unreadable. That's when he noticed the slight shimmer in her eyes. She was holding back tears. Without another word, he reached forward and grabbed her wrist. Wait! He ignored her protest and effortlessly pulled her out of the classroom. The cool breeze hit her skin as Jungkook led her to the college garden. The moment they reached an empty bench, he let go of her wrist. She rubbed the spot where his fingers had been, hesitating. Jungkook sat down and handed her the snacks and banana milk. Don't take their words to heart. His voice was firm but not unkind. And here you have not eaten anything? Wine blinked, looking down at the snack in her hands. Banana milk, her favorite. She hesitated before whispering, Thank you for helping me before, but I can't drink this. I will get even fatter. Jungkook frowned. Diet doesn't mean starving yourself. That will only make your health worse. He pushed the drink toward her again. Drink it. Wine stared at him. His face was unreadable, but there was something in his tone. Something firm yet oddly considerate. No one had ever cared like this before. Slowly, she took the snack and banana milk. Thank you. A small silence fell between them as she sipped the drink. It was the same taste she loved, yet somehow it felt warmer. Jungkook leaned back against the bench, exhaling. Then, without looking at her, he casually spoke. Let's be friends. Wine's eyes widened. I. He nodded once before extending his hand toward her. She hesitated, but before she could make a decision, Jungkook smirked slightly, grabbing her wrist and shaking it firmly. There, we are friends now. A soft smile spread across her face. Thank you. Days passed, but Wine's life in college had not changed much. The whispers, the teasing, the judgmental stares, all of it still surrounded her like an invisible cage. But one thing had changed. Jungkook, whenever the bullies tried to make fun of her, he was always there, watching, interrupting, shutting them down with a single glare. It wasn't that he hovered around her like a bodyguard. He didn't need to. His presence alone was enough to silence anyone who dared to cross the line. And why? She wasn't the same timid girl anymore. She had found courage because of him. One afternoon, the professor announced a surprise math quiz for next week. Once her sank, she wasn't good at math. Numbers had never been her friend. And no matter how hard she tried, she always ended up confused. After class, she slumped against her desk, staring at the complex equations in her notebook. Her brain felt like it had been scrambled. Chongo, who had been packing his bag, noticed her troubled expression. You look like you just lost a battle. Wine sighed because I did against math. Jungkook chuckled, I'm the top student of this class. If you need help, just say it. She hesitated. I don't want to be a burden. He scoffed. Do I look like someone who offers help for fun? I wouldn't ask if I didn't mean it. Wine bit her lip, considering. Come to my apartment this evening, I will tutor you. Her eyes widened. Your apartment? He nodded. Unless you want to fail. That was enough to make her agree. That evening, Wine stood in front of Jungkook's apartment, adjusting the sleeves of her elegant soft dress. It had long, sheer sleeves with delicate embroidery, hugging her curves in a way that made her feel confident. A silver pendant rested against her collarbone, and her hair was loosely curled, framing her face. Taking a deep breath, she knocked, the door swung open. Her breath hitched. Jungkook stood there. A towel hung low around his torso, droplets of water draining down her sculpted chest. His hair was damp, some strands sticking to his forehead. His sharp jawline and broad shoulders made it clear he was fresh out of the shower. Wine's entire face turned scarlet. "You're early." Her lips parted, but no words came out. Was she supposed to look at his face? His abs, his tall. Jungkook smirked at her stunned expression. "Come in." She quickly looked away, stepping inside as he casually walked toward his room. "Make yourself comfortable. I will get dressed." Wine sat on the couch, forcing herself to breathe normally. "It's just Jungkook. He's your friend. Just because he's ridiculously good looking doesn't mean. Ha. Before she could finish her thought, Jungkook returned, this time fully dressed in a simple black t shirt and sweatpants. His damp hair was tousled, giving him an effortlessly handsome look. He handed her a cold glass of fresh juice. "Here, you must be thirsty." She took the glass with a small smile. "Thank you." Jungkook leaned against the counter, crossing his arms as his eyes scanned her from head to toe. "You look breathtaking today." Her heart skipped. "Oh, thank you." A slow smirk tugged at his lips. "You're not shy anymore." Wine met his gaze, a soft confidence in her eyes. "Because you helped me become stronger." Something flickered in Jungkook's eyes, something unreadable. But instead of saying anything, he simply grabbed his notebook. "Come on, let's start the lesson." After hours of solving equations, discussing formulas, and sipping on fresh juice, the study session finally came to an end. Wine stretched her arms, letting out a small yawn. "I think I actually understand math now." She sat smiling softly. Chungo leaned back against the couch, watching her with an unreadable expression. His usual cold demeanor was replaced with something softer, something unfamiliar. She gathered her books and stood up. "I should probably get going. It's getting late." But just as she was about to walk toward the door, Jungkook spoke. "Wait." She turned back. He looked hesitant. His fingers tapped against the wooden table. His jaw clenched slightly as if he was battling with his own thoughts. "There's something I need to tell you." Wine frowned slightly. "What is it?" He exhaled, running a hand through his hair before finally looking her in the eyes. "I like you." Her heart stopped. The room fell silent. She stared at him, wide eyed, convinced she had misheard. "What?" Chunguk stood up, taking slow steps toward her. "I like your wine. I have for a while now." She took a shaggy breath, stepping back slightly. I. She shook her head. "You don't have to say that just to be nice to me." He frowned. "I'm not." She lowered her gaze, clenching her fingers together. I'm not beautiful. People make fun of me every day. If they see you with me, they will laugh at you too." His jaw tensed. Without a word, he reached out and cupped her face gently, forcing her to look at him. I don't care about them. I don't care what they say. Her eyes softened. Do you really think I would be afraid of a few words from people who don't even matter? He let out a dry chuckle. You're different wine, you're kind strong, and you make me feel things I never thought I could. Her breath hissed. He was serious. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't pity. It was real. Jungkook, he took another step forward, closing the distance between them. His voice dropped almost a whisper. I don't just like you, Wine, I love you. Tears pricked at her eyes. For the first time in her life, someone was choosing her, not because they had to, not because they felt sorry for her, but because they truly loved her. Jungkook gently wiped away the tear that slipped down her cheek. So, will you let me love you? Her lips trembled, and in that moment, she knew. Yes. A slow smile spread across Jungkook's face, and just like that, the walls she had built around herself began to crumble one piece at a time.